Hello everybody, happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all of you that show up in any capacity as always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hope everybody is having a good weekend, had a good week. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at the weekly astrology video. If not, that was released yesterday. Intention released above that on Friday. So typically you can look for things here on Meditative Astrology Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Getting ready for the week astrologically. So our intention that was released Friday, here's that if you haven't seen it already. On Fridays, you can find it on our social media, so Facebook, Instagram, and also on Meditative Astrology website. There's a tab for the live streams in the intention, but you can also find it on the homepage there too. So always released on Friday. Whether or not this is the first time that you have seen the intention, let's go ahead and just sit with these words for just a moment and just see what comes up with the intention for us here today. So our intention this week is cohesive circumstances are present. Cohesive circumstances are present. So like I said, whether or not this is the first time you've heard the intention, let's just sit with that for just a moment and just see what you get. What do you feel? What do you think? What does it make you want to do or not do? Does it make you feel any certain type of way based on the circumstances that have been around you, the things that have been going on lately? Maybe even if this isn't the first time you've heard the intention, you've already seen it. Maybe something new comes up. Maybe you think a little deeper into whatever your first reactions were the first time. Cohesive circumstances are present. We do have some flowing energy this week. Sign changes. Venus moves into the sign of Taurus at the end of the week, and one square. So all of these are kind of happening at the same time this week. Happy Sunday, Melissa. Thank you for being here. Also, happy birthday to my baby, to my youngest, who is 6 years old today. So happy birthday, Lily, even though she's in bed for school. All right. Let's go ahead and look at the chart like we've been doing recently. We've been doing this for a while now, where I put up the astrological wheel and we try to quickly look at the transits there. Many have said that that is helpful just to have a visualization of some kind. And I think the more that you see the chart, see the symbols, even if you don't have a whole lot of frame of reference, you just start to become less overwhelmed maybe by the more often you see it. And you know, if we do this every week together, then eventually, even if you've never seen a chart before, you start to kind of pick up little bits about the signs and the symbols and the glyphs, and it just kind of brings another level of connection to it. However, if the chart is just overwhelming, because I remember how overwhelming it was when I first started seeing the chart, and this is not supposed to be a space of overwhelming energy coming into this meditation, then just simply disregard the chart. You can close your eyes and you can listen. You can look at something else on your screen and listen. You can just jump into the meditative space. You can do whatever it is that you need to do within your own home and space. That's the nice thing about these virtual meditations. So just putting that out there before I put the chart up here. So we're going to go ahead and put the real-time clock up. This is the chart of the moment if you are watching this meditation live with us here. Location is set specific to where I am at, so the house location may be different based on where you are located, but the positions of the placements and of the planets, the degrees and the signs, and then the aspects, those are all going to be the same no matter where we are. So for the purpose of this meditation, only using the houses to maybe identify where a sign is, rather than adding the topics that usually go with the houses. So not looking at the houses topically, just for finding things. Okay, so this is the chart of right now. We have a few things that we are going to look at this week. Give me just a second here. Okay. Pull this up here. All Okay, I'm going to turn it to animate so that way we can move forward just a little bit. First thing I want to point out here is just that the position of the moon, it's at the top of this chart in the sign of Leo at 28 degrees in the 9th house. So if you find that number 9 in the center, that's going to be the 9th house here. Just pointing out that conjunction with Mars that came through early this morning. I think it was about maybe 7 o'clock this morning. Let me just go back some hours here, about 12 hours, and just, yeah, point this out about 7:30 this morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. We had a conjunction with Mars and the moon. So if there was any sort of energies at all going on around that time for you this morning, then you can kind of feel into that and just kind of think about that a little bit. Mars can be very movement oriented. It can be there can be a lot of emotions. There can be some quick moving emotions, and there can be a little bit of stress, a little bit of discomfort, but there can also be overcoming energy at the same time. So it can be very emotionally charged, but it can also be very emotionally empowering at the same time. So I just kind of wanted to point that out first of all, and then we're going to come back to the time now to just get the placement, and then we're going to go forward here in days. We're going to go forward to Wednesday here. We don't necessarily start out with a lot of aspects in the beginning of the week, maybe just the building of the things that we are going to talk about here. So going ahead to Wednesday here, Wednesday into Thursday, things are moving pretty quick. So we're going to go, yeah, we're going to go right here. Up to Wednesday, and then I can show you the movements here a little bit. Okay. Sorry. We are just getting back today from a backpacking camping trip with my daughter for her birthday, and things have been moving a little bit quick around here, but still here and still wouldn't miss this for anything. So, okay. Couple helpful sextiles that we have going on here this week. We have Venus making a sextile to Jupiter. We have Mercury making a sextile to Mars. Right at the same time, we have Mercury squaring the nodes, and that's what we're going to look at here on the chart. So starting out this week with Venus and Jupiter making a sextile to each other, you can see Venus in the 5th house here at 28 degrees of Aries. It's the last glyph in the 5th house there, or that little section next to the number 5. And then Jupiter is at 28 degrees of Gemini in the 7th house. So we have a sextile between those two planets. If I bring it forward one day, if I bring it back here, you see they're both at 28 degrees. So we have 28 for Jupiter, 28 for Venus down here. If I bring it forward to the next day, we see they both move into the 29th degree. So 29 degrees for Jupiter, 29 degrees for Venus down here. So they move together for a couple days exact. And then just after that, Friday, Venus moves into the sign of Taurus, into her home sign. Jupiter will be moving into Cancer very shortly here as well. So we're in the last days of Jupiter being in the sign of Gemini before it moves into exaltation of Cancer. So both of these are in a transitional period, both of these planets here right now. So the sextile between those two planets, and then we also have a sextile between Mercury and Mars coming through. Mercury is moving really, really quick here. So it comes through between Thursday into Friday, this sextile here at 23 degrees. At the same time, Mercury is making a square to both the north and the south node. So we have a square from Mercury at 23 degrees of Gemini in the 7th house, making a square to the north node at 23 degrees of Pisces in the 4th house of this chart, as well as if we go back to Mercury, we will see it squaring the south node at 23 degrees of Virgo. This chart only shows the north node, but the south node is always in exact opposition to that. So those are the transits that we are looking at here this week, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag, and it was a little bit puzzling to me at first here with this combination, but really you can see how, like, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, these aspects are really kind of happening just simultaneously with each other here. So the sextiles that we have, they are helpful flowing energies. Things are working through harmoniously, and it's kind of, when I see multiple sextiles, I think about that type of energy where things are working good, things are flowing, and they're just kind of working cohesively to where you don't really realize how well things worked out until afterwards, and you're like, oh, that flowed really, really well, better than I expected. When we have these sextiles, they can be subtle energies, but they can be really, really helpful and really, really beneficial. They're not as loud as like the trines that can be very expansive and like bring in lots of noticeable abundance, like things that are really growing and expanding and moving into a bigger phase or a bigger fixture or a bigger focus or something like that, or a bigger expanded ability. I think that's a good word to use here. But it's more where things are just working out in your favor, and they're just kind of pinging together. The sextile between Venus and Jupiter are of the benefic, so it's the two quote unquote best planets in the chart on their own. So it's helpful energy of flowing, harmonious, and expansive energy because it's Jupiter. Venus is at the end of Aries, and Jupiter is at the end of Gemini. So wondering about the courage to communicate, the courage to expand and seek some sort of new knowledge or new information or new way of understanding. Maybe some sort of clarification comes through here as Venus makes her last little bit of time through the sign of Aries. Venus moves into Taurus at the end of this week, and I feel like we should all throw a big party for Venus moving into Taurus because she's really had a lot going on through her trek in Aries. It's been a lot about self-individuation, a lot about standing our ground, initiating new beginnings, and our own autonomy and the things within us, and then how that creates things and creates growth for a lot. But that's very individual. It's very center focused, and it's very singling, where Venus on its own is much more about unification and things coming together. So although we get good things of Venus in the sign of Aries, we get that warrior energy, we get that feminine queen like warrior energy. So you get the the feminine warrior, you get the spiritual warrior type energy, especially since Neptune has moved into the sign of Aries. But that can be very exhausting for Venus. Venus likes things to be cohesive, to be pleasant. So if Venus has been fighting for a lot and she has been standing for a lot, it feels like her moving into the sign of Taurus is going to be about finding a place to rest, a place where she can be a little bit more like herself. And as she has this sextile moving right at the end, like the last days of her trek in the sign of Aries, where she's had an extended period of time because of the retrograde period. That retrograde did bring her back into Pisces, which is her exaltation. So she did have a good moment there. But really, I just see this point of being almost like exhausted and just tired of fighting and moving forward. Maybe we feel really empowered for the things that we've overcome. Maybe the things that have come up really inspire us, and we've created and initiated new things, and maybe we found courage that we wouldn't have found before to change things. But now we can move into a little bit more helpful place. And as she does, she comes into the sextile with Jupiter. So having that courage here still, in the last little push through Aries here, to be strong, to initiate, to fight for something, or to give one last good effort before she can sit and relax a little bit. And that push comes from the sign of Gemini. That help comes from the sign of Gemini. So information, ideas, knowledge, wisdom, that ties Jupiter into the sign of Gemini. So understanding of information, communications of informations that are helpful, or they just kind of come in at an unexpected moment or something like that. At the same time, we have a sextile between Mercury and Mars coming through here. So again, we have a moment of courage with Mars. Mars is the ruler of Aries, so Aries and Mars within their own right have a lot of similarities, right? So this is another another helpful energy of standing strong. And Mercury is also in the sign of Gemini, and it rules Gemini too. So it brings back that mental focus here, and a mental ability. The sextile between Mercury and Mars feels like it eases the square that we have between Mercury and the nodes that we also have going on this week. Excuse me. And the square between Mercury and the nodes that we have coming in this week could be a little bit of a mental tension that shows up at the same time that we have the helpful energies coming through here. Challenges and difficulties to overcome. Challenges and difficulties within communication or sharing our thoughts and our opinions and our ideas and our information that we have within our own brain, or maybe a miscommunication is definitely possible here. So there is a place where there could be some struggle. However, there is also always room to grow. Squares push us to be uncomfortable just enough, maybe quite a bit, to be able to find a place to grow from, because when we're uncomfortable, we move from that place, right? We find ways to make ourselves more comfortable. So we adapt to the situations, and we change the situations. We take whatever steps are needed, and whatever the challenge is, and we can face the challenge. Maybe that's not always the way it goes, but that's the way that it can go. So communications, and then within the North Node, communications and thought processes related to what is pulling us, what we are being pulled to. There's a pull towards the Pisces part of our chart right now. And with Mercury squaring the nodes and moving, being at the north bending of the node and kind of pulling towards, it's like our mind being pulled towards all of the things that are coming forward. And that, when our mind is like very forward focused, it can be very encouraging and very motivating, but it can also be very anxiety and kind of like stress-inducing at the same time, right? When Mercury is squaring the North Node, it's also squaring the South Node. So it's caught between this place of moving forward and kind of being stuck backwards a little bit here. So the actual square between Mercury and the nodes can be a little bit of a difficult point. However, we have these helpful moments coming on at the same time. Mercury is within its own sign. It just went through the Cazimi. We just had the new moon with Mercury sitting right there. So we've had some nice movement for Mercury that we've recently talked about here. Mercury is moving towards a conjunction with Jupiter. It's getting further away from the sun, so it's getting closer to being visible in the sky as the evening star after the sun sets here. So really, although the square can be a place of mental difficulty, there is subtle and hidden, I don't know if hidden's the best word, but subtle enough to where we could miss the helpful things that are there for us, or like what is going well, or what we really have accomplished, maybe starting to help us out, where maybe if we really feel like we haven't quite done enough or we haven't quite accomplished enough, the sextiles are like that part that we just don't necessarily realize, maybe, where we've worked together. And the nodes can also represent, so the nodes, the nodes are the points that gives our eclipses, right? The North Node gives us North Node eclipses, and the South Node gives us South Node eclipses. The North Node is kind of something that increases or pulls us towards, and the South Node being a point of release or a point of familiarity that kind of maybe pulls us back, and it's something that we should be releasing from, but we have a hard time releasing from. South Node wants to constantly release. The North Node wants to constantly increase. So, you can't constantly just be letting go of things, and you can't constantly just be bringing things in. You got to have a balance, and that's kind of the push and pull between the eclipses that we have within a cycle. And you will see that push and pull between the two houses, where those eclipses fall within your own chart here. So where the eclipses are happening, there's thematic focus, right, across those houses. So the eclipse points, or the nodes, can represent the themes and the circumstances that are at play right now. The circumstances or the conditions that we find ourselves in, the positions and the events that are surrounding us, the environments. So really, overall, the circumstances that we are finding ourselves in. So the mental sphere kind of being challenged or challenging those circumstances or those events here. At the same time, we have cohesive circumstances present at the same time, and I feel like that is the part that we kind of need to remember this week, going into this week. Really, it's nice flowing energy, but there could be a point where we kind of like mentally block ourselves, I feel like, this week here. So remembering that these cohesive circumstances are present. We have these helpful hands, even if there's a moment where it's kind of like a little anxiety inducing or a little bit stressful of like, where do we go from being in this kind of stuck in between place here. If the help is a little bit subtle, then maybe the square could kind of overpower it a little bit in our mind to like just have more of a focus, or it stands out more because the helpful things are definitely there, but you might have to kind of look for it a little bit here. So then we have Venus moving into the sign of Taurus. She's out of Aries, like I said earlier, and I feel like we should all throw a party because Venus in Aries has probably been hard for a lot of people, even if it's been encouraging. Just like Mars in the sign of Cancer has been difficult for a lot of people, depending on the placements. Can also be very empowering depending on the placements, but probably not without a little bit of struggle. Both of those retrogrades have been in places that are not easy for those planets, generally speaking. So after being through Aries and after the retrograde, she falls into the right place. Cohesive circumstances become present for Venus. She falls into a place where she can create a place of growth rather than a place of separation. She comes into a place of unity rather than a place of individuation. Aries starts and initiates, it goes out on another path, and that's the place of Mars. That's the place of the warrior, of that masculine energy, and then then planets move into the sign of Taurus, which is Venus's place. Those two houses, or those two signs, if they were in a birth chart, they would be in what's called aversion to each other because they are right next to each other. There is no aspect between those, which means in ancient terminology or language, it would say that there's not a relationship or there's not a line of sight. They can't see each other. So that's just kind of to illustrate the difference, the stark difference between these two signs. So now she's moving into a place that may feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more easy and flowing for her. So maybe this is where we start to reap the rewards of what the retrograde is, because she's finally moving on to something new. She's finally moving on to a new phase here. And that is another cohesive circumstance that is coming through here, because that circumstance, that environment, the position that she's finding herself in is improving. She's finding herself in a better situation here. So keep that in mind also. All right, so that is the astrology that we have here coming through this week. Like I said, could be subtle, could be a little bit loud, so we will see. Oh, cards for this week. Okay, so when I was pulling the cards, typically I just think about all of the energies and the intention and just kind of the goal that I'm going towards, right? This week, I was focusing specifically on the square between Mercury and the nodes, because it feels like that's kind of the kicker this week that might just kind of throw a wrench for things. So I was thinking specifically about that, and when I pulled the first card, my intention was essentially to show me something about that card, something that will kind of help us a little bit. And the first card that came up, first of all, I got a new deck that I'm using here. Some of you might really like this, some of you might not necessarily like the aesthetic of it, but this is the Nightmare Before Christmas tarot deck, and I actually, it just kind of came to me. So using that deck here this week. So the cards are different. If you are a Nightmare Before Christmas fan, then the artwork on the cards really kind of help and like matching for the future and things like that, like matching the characters and the plots and things. It really gives another layer. So if that's your thing, then you might really kind of connect to these cards. Anyways, the first card that came up was the Death card. And I thought, okay, that's not really like easing my thoughts about this or like, you know, the process or anything like that. But then I started thinking about it a little bit and thinking about how, you know, there's many different kinds of deaths and there's many different kinds of transitions that we can find ourselves in. So I wanted a clarifier card for that. And what came up with that was the World card. So we have the place with all of the different holiday trees within it here, but it came in the reverse form. So looking at these two cards together, I was thinking, okay, there is some sort of change, there is some sort of transition, there is something that is falling away here. The World card coming up, I was asking in regards to kind of like a follow-up to the Death card here. So the World card in the upright in its own position, representing something like completion, something like achievement, or you know, like making it to the final place. It's the last major arcana card. So it's like the completion. It's everything coming together and molding and milding together. The World in reverse is not cohesive. It's not a completion. It's not things coming together completely. So when I was looking at these two cards and together, and I was contemplating on them in regards to what we could have going on here in the chart, I started thinking about the change of circumstance and being in a little bit of a transitional space within the circumstances here. You know, we have a variety of circumstances and we have good things, but the good things can kind of be overclouded by the little difficult things here, right? I already said that this week. So as an answer to the Death card this week, we get the World in reverse. When I see the World upside down, you know, the World in an upright position is about expectations being complete, meeting the expectations, the achievement. It's getting to exactly where you want to be. When the World is reverse, we are not meeting those achievements. We are not getting to exactly where we want to be. So there's a lot going on in my head here with these two cards, and I just want to make sure I say them the way that I want to. What if we are being called to release our attachments to the world and to our own expectations of the way that things are being called out, and to let those expectations die? What if we are being called to be in a transitional space to where we just allow things to flow in such a way that they just flow? So what if we were able to find a change of circumstances through letting things go and not worrying and not letting our anxiety get up about different things? Don't let that square pull you in. Let go and let flow at the same time. These two cards together at first glance can be really daunting. It's thinking like, okay, something is falling away, something is dying, something is leaving, something has finished its process, and we have not, you know, and then we have another card that is showing like incompletion basically. And we don't want things to fall away that are incomplete, right? I see this more as, rather than that, which is kind of like would kind of just be like my first thought looking at just those two cards without any other kind of context. There's always context to anything. Astrology, tarot, any sort of divination, right? There's context to it because symbols are multivalent and have multi-meanings. So what if it is calling us to let our expectations die? The square is from Mercury, which is our mind. It's our thoughts, it's our communications, it's our perceptions, it's our mental sphere. All of the aspects this week are the personal planets. So they're the planets that represent our mind, represent our desires, what we want, our ambitions. You know, Jupiter is not one of the personal planets, but it represents a lot of our personal beliefs and the philosophies and the knowledge and the information and what we do with that, how we allow that to expand and how it allows that to grow. So Jupiter can be very, very personal too, as far as our beliefs, our morals, our ethics, and our own principles that we all have. And we all have our own principles, even if they're different from, you know, from the next person. So what if we're able to let things go and let the circumstances be present, whatever, and let them cohesively be present. So whether that's allowing us to let go of things, to let new things come in, or whether that's telling our own brain to stop worrying about the past, present, and future and just be within the moment, whatever that moment is. We have helpful things at hand. We have sextiles between Venus and Jupiter, the two most beneficial planets. We have a sextile between Mars and Mercury. Mars gives that courage and that ambition and that drive, and really a place to have the light shine forward. Mars is in the sign of Leo, in the sign of the sun. So we have these other subtle things with Mercury that are happening too. Last week was a great week for Mercury. It could be that there's a lot going on with Mercury and Jupiter both in the sign of Gemini. Even though Mercury does well in Gemini, Mercury can problem solve, but there might be a lot of problems to solve. So maybe we need to just stop and take things one at a time and allow and kind of let flow a little bit here. Yeah, so that's what I have this week. Hopefully that makes sense a little bit. I'm gonna look at the comments here because I do see a couple of them. Hello, Susan. Hello, Rob. Good to see you guys here. Between moving forward and stuck, feeling that, yes, there's a pull here a little bit. Went to bed early, and this morning body felt heavy from waking up. You had to push yourself to do the regular exercise. Yeah, that heat would get me to 100 degrees. I'm from Michigan. It doesn't get that hot that often. When it does, we all start dying around here. Figuratively, of course, like the death card. Yeah, I really like the deck here too, Susan. Yeah, those two cards make sense to me too here. Letting go of expectations to let go of OCD. Yes, we all do have that to some degree. You are right. And depending on how much and what level, it can be difficult. So like I said, I could see where there could be some stress this week, but I see where there's helpful energy too. So this might be a week of us having to remind ourselves of that. And I think trusting the process here is really, really good. You know, there can be, I think I said this on the weekly video, but expansion and contraction happening at the same time. Mercury interacting with the North Node, expanding. Mercury interacting with the South Node, contracting. So, yeah, I want to move into this flowing, let go and let flow energy for our meditation this week. And it's gonna be really good. So I'm gonna take another sip of my tea, and you all can take a deep breath if you want to. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the intention up here for just another moment. For anybody who wants to take a peek at that for a moment, cohesive circumstances are present. Remind yourself of that this week if you need to. Cohesive circumstances are present. Your mind may play tricks on you this week, but you may also feel at the same time that things are working. And how can those two things happen at one time? That is Gemini energy for you. That is Gemini energy for you. Next week's a little more dynamic. This week is a little more flowing, but challenging at the same time. So, okay, I'm gonna move the intention out of the way here. And we have our intentional candle. As always, it's white, purity, cleansing, and a blank slate for you to bring in whatever you need to this week. There is an extra layer of cleansing and releasing here with the sage oil that is in the candle. You'll notice that I don't have anything else on the table except for my burning dish with a little bit of sage and other things in here. I just felt like a blank slate, just a full-on blank slate here would be really good this week. Maybe it should have been with the new moon in Gemini, I'm not really sure. But I just felt the desire to just like have clean this week. So I actually did wipe the table off this week too, and just like physically cleaned and just have minimal here. So that's why, yeah, that's what we have going on here this week. So I'm going to light the intentional candle, and as I do so, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase, and as I do, I encourage you to say it with me. Excuse me. All right, cohesive circumstances are present. Cohesive circumstances are present. So I'm going to light the intentional candle. As I do, here we go. Flame ignites, and as the flame ignites, the flame begins to grow. As the flame grows, so does our intention. Cohesive circumstances are present. Cohesive circumstances are present. Even if we need to remind ourselves of that, right? Just take a deep breath in on your own, settle into a nice comfortable position. If you're ready to go ahead and do so, close your eyes. If you're not quite to that place yet, that's okay. Just try to relax your eyes, try to soften your gaze. And when you're ready, we bring our attention to the breath. As we start to bring our attention towards the breath, turning our awareness from the external to the internal, let's start by taking a moment to check in with our breath. Here, let's acknowledge and take a look at the breath. But let's try not to change anything within the breath. Here, let's observe and acknowledge only. As we turn our attention to the breath, there may be an urge or an immediate response to begin to change or alter the breath. Start to improve the breath or make it feel more cohesive, more even, whatever the more is that you can think of. As we start out here, try not to change anything. Try not to alter the breath or make any changes. Attempt to have your only goal here be to observe and acknowledge the breath. And in doing so, you're finding a space of honoring the breath and honoring where your breath is at this moment. Take a moment to sit with where our breath is at this moment without changing it. We are honoring the breath. And when we honor the breath, we are honoring the path that has brought you to this very moment. We honor the path through honoring the breath because every moment, every experience, every emotion, every reaction, every bit of your day, of your week, of your month, year, and life has brought you to this very moment and plays into the quality of your breath at this moment. Most of us have fluctuations within the quality of our breath, the connection within our breath. So there is change and fluctuation. But just as if there's change and fluctuation to the circumstances around us. There's still a cumulative story. Once we've taken just a quick moment to sit with where our breath is now, let's begin to deepen the breath. When I say deepen the breath, let this be a slow, gentle, expansive process. Allow your only goal that each inhale is slightly deeper, slightly longer, and bringing in slightly more air than the inhale that came before that. Same on the exhale, allowing your goal to be that each exhale releases slightly more air, slightly more energy, slightly more tension than the exhale that came before that. The only goal being that each inhale and exhale improves slightly from the one that came before it. Slowly you start with the inhale, breathing in, gently feeling that air entering your body, moving down your throat, cooling as it does, moving down into your lungs. Lungs begin to fill, abdomen begins to distend as your diaphragm drops lower, making room for those big full lungs. And the reverse on the exhale. Slowly the air begins to escape your lungs, moving back up your throat, out into the ethers around you. Continue this process at your own slow, steady pace, keeping in mind your one gentle goal, expanding each breath slightly. As you continue to deepen the breath, there is a growing connection between you and your breath. Each time you inhale, you are bringing in energy from the ethers around you, from your environment, and from the universe. Whatever that universal energy is to you. And on each exhale, you are releasing your own energy into the ethers around you. So as you deepen and expand your connection with your own breath, you are deepening and expanding your connection with the universal energies that surround each and every one of us, whatever that means to you. Call it God, call it the universe, call it divine love, ancestral support, whatever makes sense to you at this moment. This growing connection is often so subtle that we almost miss it. Can we take the time, slow down, find a place to come to silence and stillness? And even then, we can be so focused on expanding the breath that we miss the actual expansion of the breath. We miss the helpful details that are around us. Perhaps our mind gets in the way, our perceptions of how we feel the meditation should go or be. You all know how I feel about the should, coulds, and woulds. Mental blockages. They come in the way of cohesive circumstances that are ever present. This week, we have helpful, cohesive circumstances. We have flowing, harmonious energies. Venus and Jupiter come together. Right at the very end of their respective signs. Venus, who has been through so much. Jupiter, who has brought in so much information. Both planets have been moving through, let's say, environments that are less than ideal for their true meanings. They have abilities, they have capabilities, and they can rise forward. But they could find themselves in better circumstances as well. Here they stand at the last couple degrees, helping each other, flowing together. Venus says, I have gained courage. I have gained the ability to stand on my own 2 feet. I have gained the ability to move forward and to be strong, stand tall. I have gained the ability to get back up when I'm knocked down. Jupiter says, I have gained so much knowledge and wisdom. There is so much more information out there than I ever realized. I've had conversations that are meaningful, yet detail-oriented. I've been curious about big questions and small questions. Together they say, I have the courage to speak up and to share my knowledge and information. I find myself in a circumstance where I can move forward and feel that positivity is on my side. Mercury and Mars coming together in a similar circumstance. However, they're in a little better environment than the other two. Mercury has been lifted up within its own sign, empowered to ask the questions, to make us consider two things at one time. To be a little chaotic and a little erratic, as Mercury tends to be. Remember that Mercury shifts more than any other planet. Remember that Mercury is the one that can move between the material world and the underworld, the messenger god, the trickster, as well as the question prompter. Riddles and information. Lots and lots of information. Mars in the sign of Leo stands strong in its individuality. Mars in Leo wants the light to shine on itself, but also allow that light to shine on others as well. Mars shines forward from the heart. It's authentic and true to its passions. So Mercury in the sign of Gemini, asking the questions, asking for more information, more details, more understanding. Mars says, I can act from the heart. I can allow my passions to drive me physically, and they're expanding into your mental sphere. I can give you bravery and courage to stand strong and allow your light to shine. Mercury says, thank you. Thank you for holding my hand, even if I forget. Because today I stand squaring off with both the North Node and the South Node. Finding oneself in a place of struggle, challenge, yes, but also a place to grow from. Perhaps Mars offers the vitality to do that. What circumstances do you feel caught between at this moment? How is it weighing down your mental sphere? Maybe it's weighing down your energy. Maybe it's weighing down your physical abilities or what you are accomplishing within the physical life. Maybe it really is more mental. The blocks are in communication rather than physical actions. This week, we may be called to release our expectations, release the pressure that we put on ourselves, release the anxiety that sometimes we call upon ourselves by expecting the world, expecting completions and achievements to come very easily. when in fact these things come the easiest when we allow them to flow and don't worry. Easier said than done, I know. I'm right there with you. Take a nice deep breath in together, breathing in and breathing out. In order to bring in the next inhale of any breath cycle, we first need the exhale. You need to release any air that is within you. But at the same time, in order to exhale, there has to be the inhale that comes before it. A constant process of transition or death and letting go of or releasing. It's allowing the breath to flow in and out. And just as we let that breath flow, we too can allow our circumstances to flow. Within this current deck that is guiding us, tarot deck that is guiding us this week, we have imagery from the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas. Within the world card, I'm going to hold it on the screen in case anybody wants to quickly open their eyes and take a peek at it. We have the Holiday Land, where Jack finds himself when he's searching for something. Jack is the main character, and he's on a quest, and he's searching. He has many questions. He's looking for answers. So he's in a place of searching. He's a place of looking and questioning and wondering, contemplating. If we reverse that, we don't need to go looking. We don't need to always contemplate. We don't always need to question, even though a lot of that energy is around us with Mercury's happenings these days. Sometimes we need to allow the transition to happen. Let go and let flow. Cohesive circumstances are present. That's not to say challenges and struggles aren't also present. But the key is to remember that cohesive circumstances are present in here. By the end of the week, the square from Mercury to the nose will be over. Venus will be in the sign of Taurus. And Jupiter will be in its last final days in the sign of Gemini before moving on to the sign of Cancer, place of its exaltation, a place where it's lifted up and empowered, a place where it's strong and fertile. For now, let's attempt to find ourselves in a place of not pushing, not forcing, just remembering that the cohesive circumstances are around us. They are present, and they are ever present. Before we end this meditation, let's take one more nice deep breath in together. And release. One more breath in. If it's possible for you, see if you can breathe in and out through your nose. If not, breathe in and out in any way that works well for you. Through your mouth, your nose, whichever is fine. Breathing in and breathing out. I'm going to do one more. My hands facing outward. Bringing my hands together, palms connected, fingers touching, hands cohesively present together. Moving my fingers slightly to feel that connection physically as well as energetically. May we all remember the positive things when there's difficult things. May we be motivated and strong, yet flexible and able to learn. The square from Mercury to the nodes can teach us a lot about patience, about trusting the process. Our sextiles this week put us in an environment of flow, cohesive, harmonious energy. And Venus makes her way into the sign of Taurus after interacting with Jupiter. Thank you, thank you, thank you, each and every one of you, for joining me here today, not only for myself and for this meditative space, but for yourself and everybody else that has joined this space. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you next Sunday. Remember that you can look for the intention next Friday as well as the weekly video on Saturday. If you have not seen the weekly video for this upcoming week, go to the video tab, excuse me, on the YouTube page, and you can find that video where there is much more detail where we go through the week step by step, day by day. So I will look forward to seeing you all back here next Sunday, and I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed, and abundance-filled week. I hope that you are able to move forward, move beyond any challenges, and remember the cohesive circumstances that are present, and that the events that may happen, they're all part of the path, they're all part of the process, and all part of our life, right? So yeah, thank you everybody. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you all next week. So thank you, and next time I see you, Venus will be in the sign of Taurus, so we will be celebrating Venus moving on from the sign of Aries. So personally, I am looking forward to it. Venus moving from the 6th house, where she's been spending a lot of time, moving into the 7th house, moving into my sun sign. Yeah, looking forward to it. So, have a great night and a great week. I will see you all next week. Bye now.